Mal.
Hi, Shula. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here to. Oh, let me turn my phone off. Thank you for everybody joining us because I know it's time out of your day, but we're super excited to hopefully share some of the latest insights and officially start the Relational Intelligence Lab, where we're exploring all things human connection. And today's bit is especially interesting because we're looking at AI. Hi,
Yes.
Natalie. Hi, Reed.
Hi, Natalie. Hi, Reed. How you doing? Yeah, very exciting. AI has been all over, obviously, the news all the time, and especially with dating. And this was really inspired, I think, by that announcement by the CEO of Bumble about Bee, which launched yesterday. Was it yesterday that it launched?
I think it was, but she
Yeah.
she gave a teaser. She was like, "This is happening," and then on our chat last week, I was talking about a completely different app
Mhm.
that is in
Yes.
the process of being built, and they had a job. They were looking for a relationship scientist, and so
Mhm.
I was like, wow, this is a thing, and what cool data they're going to be able to accumulate. But also, the truth of the matter is, 2026 has been the year people have logged off of dating apps. People are
Mhm.
kind of done with them. Um,
Yes.
so I think that's why Bumble has suddenly crossed this threshold of saying, hey, you don't have to do all the endless hey, how are you and chat anymore. I mean, when I talk to people in the field, they're like, we're just done with Raya, we're done with everything.
Mhm.
And it seems like the male perspective is very I feel like I'm on a psychoanalyst interview. I'm being analyzed, and
Mhm.
people want to know my emotional intelligence, and women are just like, I'm done with casual dating. So field is where people are going, and set life for the fun hookups,
Right.
and I think people are getting a bit more serious about dating.
Yeah, yeah, I've definitely been hearing people are just especially in session with clients, some of them are almost unapologetically logging off of the apps for a little bit. Like they're saying, I don't want to be on the apps right now, and I think that's okay. I met somebody in person. I'm going to kind of pursue that. Is it all right? Like it's almost taboo to not engage with it. But there is a fatigue, right? There's a certain amount of like decision fatigue, choice fatigue, just swipe fatigue, and the intention of B, I suppose, is to create this kind of psychological profile that will help select matches. So they're trying to get rid of the swiping, and it's basically going to be intelligent selections of dates of people, that you could possibly match up with, right? And it's a bit of this a super powered version of what they have now, right? So because you can see people's profile, you can see certain data points about them, things that might be interesting to you that would attract your attention in addition to the photo. And this is kind of promising something even more specialized, even more personalized.
Yeah, I think there are a few red flags for me on that. The
Hmm.
first is that from a cybersecurity perspective, I think all of us are starting to wake up and say, let's use a VPN, let's think about our privacy.
Hmm.
The tech overlords are all saying it's inevitable, you have to sign up, you have to use it.
Hmm.
But you know uh, they're going to not only have basic data points about where we live, what locations we're surfing from or swiping from or using from,
Hmm.
what our potential socioeconomic status is. When B does an interview with you, they're getting a full psychological profile on who you are, your communication styles. They put you sort of through this interview in order to match you with somebody, and that algorithm is based on what input. I think that's another aspect. And all of us kind of show up and we say, I want, what's that remix they did of that girl from TikTok? 6'2", blonde hair, blue eyes,
Oh, I'm looking for a man
finance.
in finance. Yeah. 6'5",
And
blue eyes. Yeah.
yeah, 6'5". And the thing I can tell you
Trust fund.
yeah, from experience is that what we think we want isn't actually what we need in relationships. We start off
Mhm.
in the dating world with this
Mhm.
checklist of like, I want that list. And then you have it and you're like, wait, this person's an asshole. And so, you
Yeah.
know, what they you said a comment yesterday when we were chatting, good on paper. What was it?
Oh, it's like the famous Samantha Sex and the City, good on paper, bad in bed.
Yeah, but like I would say good on paper, bad in character, because what somebody is not who somebody is. And I think
Right.
that's a big fallacy that we have in dating and romance, is that we're looking for somebody to tick these boxes. And nowhere
Right.
on that list do we have things like integrity, or it's just so fascinating how, well, I want them to have this education level as me and make this
Mhm.
much money and, come from the same religious or cultural background. And that's easy. The love actually grows where it's hard, where you have
Right.
differences. So,
Yeah, the commonalities and the similarities might make it seem like that's gonna be what the entire relationship it's a good starting point, right? Like, which I think is what in general with dating culture, I think that what this B is allegedly doing and what, these tech CEOs are trying to create is a better dating culture, right? So that there's not as much fatigue, there's not as many missed messages. You can get like somebody's intention, you can get somebody what they actually want. But the truth of the matter is that yeah, you can line all of these things up and you could still meet the person and it still couldn't work out, right? And I think that changing dating culture is not all about the app and the selection, right? It's really about like the skills that we have as human beings, to be relationally intelligent, to be able to actually have a relationship with somebody, right? And to show up, right? So they could have all of the attributes that you think that you want in a person, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be emotionally available. That doesn't mean that they're not going to have issues with commitment or maybe their expectations of what they want their life to be like. You still have to grapple with those things. And I think that there is this sense that the meeting of people is difficult, and I will say that, like, no matter where I go in the world or who I talk to, they always say it's impossible to meet anyone in New York, it's impossible to meet anyone in Madrid, it's impossible to meet anyone in Los Angeles, it's impossible to meet anyone in wherever, right? But I don't know if they're talking about the actual like meeting of the people, as much as also like meeting the people, like when you actually
mm,
connecting, right? Like I think it's like the connecting with people that's difficult. So are these apps going to help with that? Like, I doubt it, right? I mean,
yeah, it's fascinating because I think it's not just dating apps that are giving humanity fatigue. I think we're all going, I don't really want to look at a screen at the end of the day. I've been staring at my computer and
mhm,
I don't want to doom scroll on Instagram. I feel like shit when it's over, like when I'm off of it. I actually want to be conscious of the time I spend on social media because I already know, New York Magazine just had an article that the majority of your feed is fake. It's just a bunch of
mhm,
bot influencers feeding you stuff. So I think we're just, I look at this generationally and think about like my great grandparents who, when they ate food, they ate actual food they grew on the farm. And then we had fast food and TV dinners in the microwave, and everyone thought, oh, this is so cool. And then everybody started getting sick and
mhm,
not healthy. And,
mhm,
pair that with everybody sitting at a desk all day instead of doing laborious, work in the
mhm.
field. And we have a society of humans who have to actually go to a gym. If you told somebody 3 generations ago that you have to go to the gym to stay in shape, they would say, what are you
Like
talking
what?
about? And it's hilarious that we have this whole like farm to table movement when that was actually how
Mhm,
people ate,
mhm,
and that's the healthier, more sustainable thing to do. And
mhm,
I think we're kind of seeing that happen now with technology where we're going, great, that was a shiny new toy, that was fun for a minute, but now we're watching misinformation all over the place, fake
mhm,
AI accounts. And I think
Mhm.
we're exhausted, and I think we're ready for the pushback. And great, so an AI is going to have my full psychological data profile, and what's that going to mean, like with 23andMe? I mean, if hackers can hack Equifax, and
Right,
there's a data leak with 23andMe, then why am I going to hand over my full interiority to an app in hopes, like, I'd
right,
rather just go out and hope I meet somebody, you know, at a pottery class or yoga class or a bar or wherever, like the way we all used to.
right.
So yeah, and I mean, I think it's also interesting because you had experience as a matchmaker back
Yeah.
in analog days. So
Yes. I mean, I literally wrote personal ads in the back of New York Magazine. It was like a million years ago. Like I'm gonna date myself or age myself, but like it's like, we would do bachelorette searches, and there's something about this matchmaking thing that, this is what inspired me to actually go and study psychology and study relationships and study sexuality, because these people would pay tens of thousands of dollars to this woman whose technology was, a really just shameless self promotion. Also, just being hyper social and meeting a ton of people, and really just her intuition, right? That was it. And these people would pay her this money, and she would go through the things that maybe a basic dating app would have, right? Like I think these matchmakers are like, okay, what physical type do you like? And then, background, education, things that you're interested in, right? Like just the basic stuff. And then maybe, since it was in person, maybe they would catch a little bit of a vibe. But like at the end of the day, when she would introduce these people, sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. Like sometimes it's a package that you're looking at and you're like, this works, this is the kind of person I'm looking for. But the actual, where the rubber hits the road, is like, how do you relate? Like what kind of background do you have emotionally, right? Like what's your, how serious are you about actually sitting and doing the work and actually connecting with a person? How do you deal with the challenges that come up with that? How do you deal with rejection? And I think that what I experienced a lot working for her was that, these people would have all of these things that they were so accomplished at in their life, whether it's like they looked great, they had great jobs, they had, um, you know, they were financially secure, even more so than secure, right? Like successful. And they had every access to every single thing. But when it came to meeting somebody, they got the help, but then they didn't have the tools that they needed to actually build a strong, healthy relationship. And that's when they would get pissed off, or, come back and be like, this is outrageous. Like, you're not setting me up with anybody like that I actually want to be with. And since they were paying top dollar, they actually would get really upset, and they would be even more disappointed. So I went back to school because I was like, well, what are the real issues here? Like, why is it that some people have a harder time connecting than others? And when I see this AI and this bee and trying to create this perfect match for you, it just reminds me of that. Obviously, much less expensive probably, but it won't solve the actual technology issue, which is like our ability to connect and our ability to be realistic about, what our strengths are, what our limitations are, and our ability to sit through conflict and the hard parts of actually being with another person, you know?
And I think that's why having something like the Relational Intelligence Lab is so imperative right now in society and culture. I mean, what I've been doing for the past decade has been teaching erotic intelligence education to college students.
Hmm.
And that is relational intelligence paired
Hmm.
with things like body attunement, creative
Yeah.
imagination.
Hmm.
It is a type of, I mean, social emotional intelligence are two of the main ingredients. And so, I think this idea that, AI is going to solve everything. A year ago, I remember running a funny test through just Google. I said, what is one in the pink, two in the stink? And I posted it on Erotic Intelligence's Instagram, and Google's AI said it was a children's shoe game. And I was like, this is the greatest AI fail ever. And I'm like,
My
if you
God.
censor sex on the internet and sex ed on the internet, like all these
Right.
tech platforms are, guess
Right.
what? AI is gonna not have education about. But I think as it becomes more prevalent and as we think it's like this miracle thing that's just going to solve everything, I think we need to recognize that it's not going to solve human connection. It might
Hmm.
be able to analyze, power dynamics in a situation. You run
Hmm.
email, upload your email correspondence with a colleague at work, and it can tell you, or you can say, help me write back to this text or this email, and it can help you with that. But I will
Absolutely.
say, I have clients who are telling me I stopped talking to this guy because I'm positive when we texted, everything was run through AI. He sounded great, and then in person, he sucked. And I do think that's the unfortunate part. When we rely on these apps, when we rely on technology, we're
Yeah.
not actually using our relational skills, our human skills. And so then when we get in person, we don't have those skills, I mean, social intelligence in general is declining.
Right.
You can't make a cute joke. People don't look up anymore. I mean, my
Mm.
biggest contrarian belief is that, you know, we all just need to be more graceful and kind to each other. And, men are like, women are so mean and they're combative and aggressive. And women are like, I'm fucking done with men. They're awful and they destroy the world. And there's just this polarization and this instant judgment. And I mean, rightfully so. I get it. I completely understand. But, when I'm at the store and I say, excuse me to somebody 5 times and they can't hear me because they have their headphones on. And the sixth time I say, excuse me, and I yell, and then they turn and look at me like I'm the asshole. We have a social intelligence problem on our hand. Like maybe you put one headphone in and one out when you're in public. I don't
Hmm.
know, or you keep the volume down so you can hear excuse me.
Yeah.
But I do think that with technology in general over the past 20 years, our social and emotional intelligence has declined.
Yeah.
Um, and so this whole attachment thing, because this is something I just brought up,
Hmm.
this is really cool what you can use AI for, and
Hmm.
looking at situationships or work relationships or power dynamics. And
Right.
your wheelhouse is definitely things like attachment theory. I mean, you were the senior mental health coach for Headspace. Like, you have 2 master's degrees, your stuff. Could you explain to us a bit what attachment theory is, and also why is everybody like spewing it all over social media like it's like this definitive diagnostic tool?
Right. Yeah. And I think that, with attachment styles, I think what is so seductive about it and is something that, people really like to lean on and use is that it's like a very there are types, right? It's like there are like four different types of attachment styles that, people talk about and people use to explain things like clinically and attachment style is really something that is more like a heuristic. Like it's a way of talking about an experience that people have, right? It's not like a blood type, it's not like I'm O positive, right? Like that's my blood type, right? Like that's not gonna change, right? And with attachment style, it's really describing a relationship that you have with your primary caretaker, your primary caregiver, the first relationship that you have. And it's reinforced in that relationship. So if you have a parent who is creating a secure environment for you where you're able to have emotions, where conflict is dealt with and not shied away from, and there's resolution, you might have like a more secure attachment style because that's the first way that you were loved and that was, what you experienced. Um,
What a
if you were
privilege.
Yeah, what a privilege. That is the kind of legacy that you want to leave for your kids, for sure, if you can, right? But not everybody has that experience because people are people and people become parents and they're regulating their own nervous system and processing their own childhood. So sometimes when people are in environments where it wasn't safe to express emotions, it wasn't safe to have conflict, they can become, anxious. Like if there were consequences to being upset. You know, if you were sad and your parents couldn't manage it because they had their own issues going on, mental health issues, substance issues, just their own emotional regulation issues, you know, you feel being abandoned in relationships can open up that kind of wound, or even implied abandonment, right? Could open up that wound. And implied abandonment could be even somebody not texting you in the amount of time that you want to be texted back, right? But that is something that is activating that earlier experience, you know? So it's a way of describing relationships we have with our primary caregivers, and then that, you know, how that might be activated in relationships that you have presently, right? And there's also, you know, avoidant reaction where people are, you know, they're afraid of closeness. It's not safe. So they minimize their needs, they pull away, they can't rely on other people because they were taught that they can't rely on other people, right? From their primary caregivers, their earliest experiences. And then there's disorganized attachment, or fearful avoidant, which is kind of the, you know, push and pull, right? So those are very important for somebody to know about themselves. Like if they're going through a therapeutic process, if they're trying to understand why they're having issues in relationships, it's something that's very useful. When it becomes a little bit, you know, when it comes to misuse is when people are basically identifying other people's behaviors as like, well, that person's an avoidant, this person is, you know, disorganized, this person is anxious, or I'm anxious. You know, when you start labeling yourself and others like it's a diagnostic tool, then you put yourself in a box and you're not really using it in the way that you can use it to heal from these certain experiences relationally, right? So if you have more of an anxious attachment to your primary caregiver, your first caregiver, it's it's very likely that if you are with somebody who is maybe secure, maybe somebody who's like actually there for you, you know, you would think, oh, that's all that that person would want, right? That's all that person is craving. But it could actually activate them because they're like, oh, is this safe? Can I do this? You know, I'm not used to kind of not checking my messages, or I'm not used to like not like checking up on them all the time to make sure that they're still there. But you can heal through that experience. Like by
Mm,
having that corrective, positive experience, you can kind of not like totally overcome that relationship maybe with your, you know, the primary caregiver. It doesn't erase everything, but you can heal through that relationship, right? There's some
mm,
friction, there's something that you have to overcome in order to understand something about yourself, the way that you were raised, and like relationships in general. Yes, relationships can be safe, right? Yes, relationships
mm.
are places where I can trust. So it's unfair to just label someone as anxious or avoidant. Maybe they're engaging in anxious or avoidant behaviors. And it's not about diagnosing that person, it's about getting curious, like what's underneath that? Like what could it be, right? Like what is going on with this person that's making it, you know, activating my attachment system.
And I think what's so interesting also is that even I mean, so, it's just wild how there's so much therapy speak and
Yeah.
like all over the internet because
Yeah.
it's quick and easy to fit a tiny little label into, you know, a
Yeah.
content post.
Yeah.
And I think social media in some ways has prevented the nuance and the context and the richness and the depth that we need as humans. Again, another way it's subtracting from our humanity in some sense. But it is interesting how within relationships we heal. And
Yeah.
so many people I know in Gen Z, especially, I mean, there's this whole viral TikTok thing now, and they're saying I've never been on a date, and they're like 25. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, Jesus, if you knew my number at 18, you'd throw me in hell, you know? um, but you know, practice makes perfect. What can I say?
Oh yeah.
But um, but you know, it did take dating a lot of people. It did take failing a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, getting my heart broken and getting my soul crushed.
Yeah.
Before I found my person that I've been with for 16 years now, and and in that relationship, there has been so much healing, and in the healing, so much deeper, greater awareness. But
Mm-hmm.
one thing I do notice are pulls and attractions I have towards relationships, friendships, chaotic work relationships that are
Mm-hmm.
um, a, re- a, a mirror, a resemblance to some of the
Yeah.
chaos I had as a child.
Right.
And I find that so fascinating that it's,
Mm-hmm.
everybody on social media pigeonholes it into like how to deal with an avoidant if you're dating an avoidant, and it's like, oh, come on, like avoidant with you, but this way with this person, because different
Right.
people bring out different parts of us. And I think this general idea, well, how does your nervous system feel? I mean, that's another thing just gets so oversaturated and so overused. Like, do people even know what
Right.
they're saying when they say nervous system? Like
Right.
your
Yeah.
autonomous system, your parasympathetic
Right.
system, your like it's just
Right.
so funny from my
Right.
perspective to see
Mm-hmm.
how distilled down this stuff gets
Yeah.
for pop culture. And I will say my queer lesbian friends are the probably biggest users of throwing around the attachment labels.
A lot of
But
processing, a lot of
yeah,
processing.
which I think is a sign that they care and they're aware and they're learning and they want to
Right.
learn about, you know, I tend to look toward the queer community for hope for the future, because I'm always like, they are doing things that the heteros need to get on board with if they want to evolve. They're always a little bit ahead of the game. Like when you look at technology, just because I've been doing sex tech for over a decade, it's always the sex stuff that people do first if you want to see
Right.
where technology's going.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, what's happening in sex and love? And I think the same can be said with relationships, which is great because we're getting less of these little boxed in
Mm.
structures and more of an individualized experience, again, not of just what I want or what I think I want, but what I need. And I think
Yeah.
that speaks to the point of what is the point of a relationship to you? And I don't think any of us think about that. And that's something everybody should think about. What is the point of a relationship? And some people will say, oh, well, my work relationship is to get paid, da da da, or, but when I ask couples, it's usually oh, friendship, companionship, to have somebody to share life with, a best friend. And the worst one I hear of all is I wanted to have kids. So I got together with someone to have kids. And I'm like, well, that's not the reason you should be starting a life with somebody, because guess what? Those kids are going to be gone after a while, and you're stuck with them, or you just get a divorce. But so, Scott Peck has this one thing that he says, and somebody said it to me once, and then I read his book, The Road Less Traveled, and I was like, oh, like this blew my mind. It was like the point of a relationship is to grow, is to evolve.
Hmm.
And so I
Yeah.
say that the point of a relationship is to have someone in my life who inspires me to wake up every day and be the best version of myself.
Hmm.
And if you're in a relationship for we all have reasons why: validation, to be seen. We need
Right.
mirrors of
To
relationships. Yeah.
discover a new town, discover a new,
Yeah.
taste. Like it's not one size fits all, and you need to know where the person fits into your life, and that can be growth too, right? All of those things can be growth, but like the challenge, I think that probably what this author is saying is like the growth is like being challenged so that you can grow, right? Like
Yep.
that's one of the main parts of relationships, right? Like they are challenging. And sometimes when I'm working with people and they're like, I just want the dating to be over so that I can be in the relationship. And I'm like, well, slow your roll, because like that's like the relationship is like the prize is the work that you need to do to maintain that relationship and to learn something about yourself and the other people and humanity and love and so many other things, which is why, I think another interesting aspect of AI and relationships beyond like the dating selection and, okay, so like the AI is going to do a better search for you. Okay. It's like, Google on steroids or whatever, right? And so that's one component. But like, what about the, AI companions, right? Like AI, people having relationships with AI. Like how do we even start to really think about that? And like you were saying, people 25 and under not ever having a date with a person, but are they having an AI companion? And is companionship going to be a replacement for relating? Like that's the question, and companionship, a frictionless kind of companionship, right? One that is constantly affirming you and
Yeah.
affirming your experience, and one that you can train to actually understand your preferences, right? So that they're always there to please you, right? Which your partner is not there to please you. I don't know to get your partners out there to necessarily just please you, right? They're there also to challenge you and to invite you into learning things about yourself or the world, right? So that's another thing that I think is really, why have a relationship, if you just want a 24/7 validation machine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, I mean, we don't have a lot of data on this yet, obviously, but there was a study that just came out. I have it. I can after the talk, I'll put together an email and send links. But
Awesome.
basically, that if you use AI to analyze chats, and there's a really strong use case in China where women, especially, were using AI to work through difficult conversations, both with partners and with people at
Hmm.
work.
Yeah.
So, in a place where you're really conditioned, I think even more so to be a certain sort of gender role in
Hmm.
how you show up and how you communicate,
Hmm.
women were able to kind of find this courage to bring up difficult conversations, to not just like, keep their head down and be quiet, but to say,
Right.
hey, how do we do this? And so they worked through those conversations on AI before having them in real life, and that had a net positive effect. But
Right.
when you look at people who are socially isolated, physically isolated,
Hmm.
and their main interaction is with their AI companion more so than with humans, it's detrimental to our psychological health and well-being.
Hmm.
And I find that to be so terrifying, because it's not a replacement for the real thing. I call it the high fructose corn syrup of human intimacy.
Yeah.
Um, and our dear friend Bryony Cole did a TED talk, the TED Next talk, which is cool. They're like 6-minute talks um, on AI and intimacy. And she had these three, she said, look, it's already happening. All
Right.
these, high school kids are using their AI companions. And she said, so here are 3 questions that are takeaways for you,
Right.
to think about when you're using AI. And the one I really liked, I think it was, are you using it to be seen, or are you using it to hide?
Exactly. I
And
love that. Yeah.
if you're using it to hide, then and maybe the answer could be both, right? Like, well, I feel
Right.
seen, but there's we learn, and there's a whole movement. Just because I have a 5-year-old, there's a whole movement in the education sector. They were going to put an AI school here in New York, and it
Don't do it.
didn't work out. But if you look at how the brain learns and how we learn as humans, we are born learning and modeling everything we do from another human.
Yeah.
And everything we learn from the second we're born is from another human.
Right.
So the best way we can learn is it, and the best education system in the world is in Finland. They're not teaching their kids how to read at 5 and 6. They're just saying, go play. The
Hmm.
biggest skill you can gain is social emotional intelligence. Work it out, figure it out. I mean, in
Hmm.
America, all the parents are hovering and they're like, oh, this person took a toy. And in Europe, they're very much like, let them figure it out, because they need those skills. And guess what? They have Finland, one of the happiest places on earth. My partner is Finnish, so I can attest to this. But I think these are bigger overall wellness questions that we need to be asking ourselves, and stop jumping onto this. AI is going to solve everything. I want it to solve cancer. I want it to get rid of these fucking lantern flies. I
Right.
don't want it to recreate a version of my ex or my dead dad so I can talk to him. Like, I've processed that loss. Processing loss is a healthy part of our humanity. And in that hole, in that loss, beautiful flowers of love grow, beautiful memories grow. And yes, it's bittersweet and it's terribly painful, but I don't want technology, telling me this promise that it's going to fix it or make it easier. I want to
Right.
grow in my humanity and in who I am. And AI is not going to find your soulmate because it doesn't have a soul. So,
I mean, and also it's being connected all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're being like seen, right?
right.
Like being connected to an AI that's kind of like parroting back to you, anticipating all your needs. I think there's like this fantasy in relationships that, you're going to meet the person who is going to be able to anticipate your needs, know what you need before you actually do. It's seductive, but does it make you feel less lonely? That's my question. Like, more connected but less lonely. I'm not sure, because that's anything that, the only thing that anyone could talk about is like this loneliness epidemic. And, that's, we're more connected than ever, but not less lonely,
And that's
So,
because we're not meeting in like, in person like we used to. I mean, everybody said, "Oh, back to the office, everybody." And I think yes, it's about productivity, but there is something so valuable about, I mean, what makes us human? And that
mm,
is the way we love, the way we repair after big messes, the way we create together. I mean,
yeah.
AI is helpful when we're being creative, but the collaboration and the interdependence,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
so keen to what makes us human.
Yeah.
And people are kind of saying, I don't want a book written by AI. I don't want to. My friend Jamie just wrote this book and he put Chat GPT as his co-author. And I went to the launch and it was great because he explained the process. And I mean, when he explained the process, I was like, you know what? I bet you like every author out there is doing that. He
Right.
uploaded, I mean, he's an author of like 7 books, but he uploaded all of his books and his writing. He said, okay, if you
Make
look
my
at
big cannon from here,
yeah, he was like, if you look at all of human society and all the civilizations and the history of, of humans from the beginning of time, and you look
Mhm.
at us collectively from your perspective,
Yeah.
what 10 commandments would you design to bring about the most peace and harmony and human flourishing? Great AI prompt, right? And so,
Very intense one.
yeah, it's called the 10 AI commandments.
I'm
And
like,
so it
does
was,
coconut milk go with salmon?
yeah,
That's one.
yeah. And so he said it was just this beautiful moving thing that it recited back, and so it was a collaborative process for him. But people online are just like, Chat GPT helped write this, we don't want anything to do with it. And the truth is he's a brilliant writer and he had a human editor and it's very much his voice. But I think, that quick assumption of like, it's hey, we don't want anything to do with it. So I think we are seeing a big pushback from it, but I don't think it's going to magically solve all of our problems. I mean, somebody asked me on Netflix once, we did the Follow This episode with sex robots, and they said, do you think sex robots are going to take over? And I said, no, I want a sex robot to make me a martini and paint my toenails and clean my house. And then I'll
Totally.
have more time for sex,
Right. That's the sex robot.
That's what
Making
I
time
want.
for sex. It's called the making time for sex robot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that, also to use AI to craft messages, right? Like maybe not to the extent that, people feel like they're getting a little bit like Cyrano de Bergerac, out of the situation, like where it's like the somebody has like great text game and then all of a sudden in person they're awkward. There is a place for, let me spice this message up, or does this sound aggressive? Like that's the one that I use the most. Like if I'm writing to somebody who's like maybe, somebody who owes you money or whatever, you're like, make this less wild, right?
Yeah.
But that's helpful, right? But knowing that, when you go offline there are other skills that you can't just rely on that unless you want to just exist in that space all the time, unless you just want to exist online. You're going to have to learn the offline technology, right? You're going to have to download a new operating system in order to be able to relate to another person like in a very like real way, and to feel your hard feelings and feel those things that are, not pleasant sometimes, in order to learn about yourself. And I know that you did a thing where you took people's messages and put it through AI to read their attachment styles. And I think that that's an interesting way to, people saying, like, what does this message mean? What is this person's intention? AI can like guess, but they also can't get the whole story. Like, is it as diagnostic as the social media kind of attachment style thing?
I mean, so I have it. I
Yeah.
have one up on the
Yeah,
screen.
and I didn't mean to like segue into
No,
that like
I'm
in a
like,
really crazy way, but like
I,
I feel like that's something that people would be really interested in seeing,
yeah. So,
and probably have done actually. Probably there are probably
yeah,
more than
they're
five
like, we
people
do
who are
this all the
watching this who
time.
hasn't done that.
Oh, a robot husband just to make me jealous. Ooh, I like that. Oh my gosh, cuckolding would be so much better with robots. No. I
Robot
love it.
cuckolding, perfect.
Or
Nobody
yeah,
gets
just
hurt.
yeah, make the robot do all the cleaning and like a really good foot rub that can like sense with AI like where the knots are. I don't know. That I think that's a pretty human somatic skill, being able to feel and touch in a really intricate way. But could technology get there? Maybe. Um,
I have this thing from Amazon that I call the robot that you just like put on your back and you hold it and it massages you, but it's not the same as having somebody rub your back. I'm sorry, it's just not.
yeah, yeah,
Huh?
like yeah. Um, so so yeah, I was doing some consulting and found that this is a thing that people are doing. They're running. You can upload a WhatsApp text. You can upload your iMessages. You can upload emails. You can upload screenshots from Instagram messages. Is a pretty common thing. There's a whole textformyex.com, which is an app. It starts with an A, Amaro or something. Web.
Amori or something.
Yeah.
Amori.
And so they claim that they don't read your texts. It uploads to a server and then it
Totally
deletes it.
safe.
Yeah, so your privacy is supposedly safe. Again, all of these things are privacy concerns. I mean, these big, huge tech companies say this is fine, and then the next thing you know, there's a class action suit, and they're settling for millions and billions of dollars
I
because
mean,
they.
it's the old adage of like, don't say anything if you don't want it to get around to somebody else. You know what I mean? Just
Correct,
use it. Or
correct.
as Dorinda Medley says that as Real Housewives of New York City, write it, regret it, say it, forget it, write it, regret it.
There you go. I mean, we're saying a lot today, but so
Yeah.
I mean, so
We
I
won't
was
ever
like,
get sponsored by Bumble, that's for sure.
yeah,
But,
yeah. I am totally fine with that because I like
right.
my buzzing in the real human way, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly.
So anyway, and my beehive is Beyonce all the way. Although she's gone over the hill to the billionaire class, but that's a whole other story, which is fine. So we ran a TXT file. So you
Hmm.
upload the WhatsApp to
Okay.
your computer.
Hmm.
In this case, you can do it with any of the other types of messages I mentioned.
Hmm.
And I was like, let me just do this with Claude because I like Claude. And so the prompt was analyze the messages between these two people, uh, uh, analyze their attachment patterns, attachment styles, the power dynamics, who's chasing who, and what to do next.
Yes, great
Um,
prompts.
and these are so I thought this was really cool. So let me how do I share a screen? Share screen, and it's gonna say which window. We're gonna share this window. Okay, can you guys see?
Not yet.
Okay, wait. Oh, here we go. Share entire screen. Okay,
Here we
can you
go.
see? Okay,
Yes.
cool. All right. So we have Dylan and Mimi.
Hmm.
He is avoidant, leaning, secure. She is secure with anxious activation. So it gives this whole sort of breakdown of their attachment styles.
Hmm.
He frames intimacy through physical desire and fun banter. As a nurse, she's attuned to others' needs, which
Hmm.
means she overinvests in reading his signals. He's
Hmm.
conflict avoidant and comfort seeking on his own timeline. And then I love this. We have a straight up
Wow.
breakdown of emotional investment right here.
Mm.
Hire
Mm-hmm.
more invested, initiative planning, hire more initiating. So you can see she's the one doing more of sort of the chasing,
Right.
and then you see who's chasing who. Mimi's chasing Dylan,
Mm.
and so then you see sort of what they should do. So I think that it is. Let me stop sharing the screen. There were some other things I did not want identifying things, and there was an
Yeah.
STI encounter. There were a lot of things in that situation. I changed the names on that one. But yeah, and I was like, oh yeah, because we don't want to have people's personal
Oh,
information
no, no,
out
of
there.
course. But I
But
guess
it's
if we put ours out there, right? And if we put ours, I mean, is that something that we're going to have to start asking people? Like, I think that Bryony talks about this a little bit in her talk, where it's like, you know, do we make agreements of how much we're going to use AI during the relationship? Is it like no AI in the first 3 months of the relationship? Like, do you have to ask for consent to be like, can I put our text message through Claude to figure out what's going on if it has your name and your phone number?
Well, and I think that's the PSA and the red flag right now for everybody, that
Right.
whatever you say to anybody anywhere on text, I mean, it's so easy to get frustrated
Right.
and pissed off and just fire off and blah, 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 and then say, oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I overreacted, whatever. But this isn't just in dating. I mean, this is in your work relationships,
Mm.
everything. Anybody can take anything you've sent in digital communications and upload it to the internet, and ta-da, you're screwed. Like, all your info's out there, and what these big companies are doing with that data, we don't know. They claim
Right.
one thing, do they actually have integrity? What we've seen historically with that, not so much.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
there's this whole de-googling movement, and you get all these social media clips that are like Google's going through all your emails, and then you're like, you actually like, is this true? And it's really, we're in a very tough spot with misinformation. It's hard to spot. Digital
Yeah.
literacy is like one of the pillars in erotic intelligence education that we added later. And I even get fooled. There's this thing about the CEO from Palantir putting chips in vaginas. And I believed it because, like, that dude's such a
But
creepy asshole.
it's so believable. Like, it's like they'll do anything. Like, forget about like women's health or funding all that, any of that stuff. Let's just like throw some chips in their, punani's. I mean, there's no way, like it's totally possible. Like, that's where the funding is going.
I'm like,
But
can we just like fool AI and make our dating questions like, do you have a chip in your cooter? Do you have a cooter chip?
and if not, do you want one? Yes, no.
Oh
I think
yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, like in crafting a text or crafting a message, right? Using AI, putting something through and saying like, how does this sound, is one thing, but then putting somebody's response to your AI that's been
Mhm.
trained by you, right? If you're using it consistently and it knows your voice and that's what it's evolving to kind of
Mhm.
be really responsive to knowing who you are. How can they tell you what this person's background is or what I mean, maybe you can read the message, but if you don't have the full context, it's just like saying this person is anxiously attached and they're much more invested, and it's just the way that they're writing a message. You have to meet that person in real life and you have to
Yeah.
know their whole back. You have to have the full psychological background, which if Mimi, goes on B and has that whole thing downloaded, then Chat GPT or Claude can be like, Mimi so and so, okay, do a whole search, Bumblebee, here's her full, so now I can tell you, then it's like,
Yeah.
you know
I will say, so I ran that simulation through a couple of times, and the first time with the real names,
hmm
the second time with the names changed, the third time with the occupations changed, and I got different results.
mm
I found it really interesting that when I said change the occupation to a nurse, that
mm
suddenly the output from AI was that, oh, it's a nurse, then she must, over sense people's needs and caretake, etc. And
Right.
so I think
But
that's
they're
why the
nurses that like steal, they steal morphine and, sell it on the street. So like, not all nurses are, the same, right?
yeah, so Mad Philosopher says one of the problems with AI right now is that it will never admit that it doesn't know. It errors and it makes mistakes. Absolutely. I mean, to the Google one in the pink, two in the stink thing that I did, like that's it's
That was a big oversight.
yeah, yeah. And I think the sad part is that we're like, oh yeah, it's going to change the world. And I think we need to be realistic. I mean, these big companies using it to create videos and you just see the slop. Like we're exhausted. I want to go put my hands in the dirt and pull out worms and, hang out with Hosier for a minute. I'm just kind of, I'm over it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like one of these things that, and we'll see this week, particularly with all of these commencement addresses where, these speakers who are usually, boomer age, like there is a lot of pushback when they even talk about AI and how it's the future and all of this other stuff. And there was one person, I forget who it was, they were like, you have a choice to make. You were telling me about this, about
Oh
your
yeah.
niece's
Graduation
commencement. Yeah,
yesterday.
where it
Yeah.
was like, you have a choice in how this rolls out. It's your response to it, right? I mean, or maybe I don't remember. You can tell me
Well,
exactly.
it needs regulation, point blank. And what's
Yeah.
happening, I mean, even here in New York, we have somebody running for office and a big tech person is throwing millions of dollars at their opponent because they're trying to put some regulatory laws in because we're seeing chat GPT suicides and we're seeing, some of the darker elements happen. And so we need regulation. I mean, my friend Jamie, who's, a futurist and wrote that book, The AI 10 Commandments, he's the
Mhm.
first person to say, this is great technology. I'm an AI optimist, but we
Yeah.
need
Hmm.
regulation. And without it, we're all simply losing our autonomy and our agency. And it's a
Right.
form of digital colonialism, I heard somebody say in Gen Z, which I was like, okay, here we go. But if you think about it, somebody else said that it's rape. It's rape of our identity. It's rape of our interiority of who we are. It's taking too much of who we are, and for what purpose? It's like so you can
Hmm.
profit, so you can con us and sell us a bunch of stuff. I mean, at some point, like, can we just be happy and human again? Why are we putting so much faith into
All
a
right.
thing that can't even get one in the pink, two in the stink right?
Well, Reed has a great question, kind of that we can like follow up to like, give people some takeaway practical skills from this, which is what are one or two practical ways to reclaim social, emotional, relational intelligence in the midst of an AI world that's keeping people apart? So, yeah, I mean, I think that we all have to come up with those ways to do it, right? Like you were saying, go outside, stick your hand in the dirt, touch worms, kill lantern flies, touch hosier, whatever, you know. But I mean, I think there, we had to do this with, back in the day with airbrushing and magazines. And, I remember that was like a big part of like media literacy and digital literacy. I mean, it's what to believe and what not to believe, what to keep from AI or technology and what to leave behind. I mean, without technology, I wouldn't have a business. I've always kind of done this virtual work. And so I'm so grateful for it. And it's created so many wonderful things in my life, but I know that there are limitations to what it can offer me. And like I told you yesterday, it's like I can use technology or AI to like look up a recipe and teach me how to cook something, but it's never going to teach us how to taste. It's never going to teach us how to experience things. And like you said, it's like this high fructose immediate kind of experience. So when things feel easy but a little bit hollow, and I think that, I don't know, we haven't evolved out of that human need to
Mm,
experience and connect and to strive and like struggle for things,
mm.
or to experience that friction, to have the satisfaction of working towards something. So if you're feeling yourself having that kind of hollow feeling, or if you're feeling yourself feeling very negative, just stepping away and looking around, right? Stepping away from the technology, and maybe you use the technology to look up a park to go to, or an exhibit of visual art to go see, right? Use it for that, but then do the things that connect you more to other people, right? Go offline, like find the group online, but go offline to connect with them. So making sure that you have like a balanced palette, a balanced meal of humanity, right? We
Balanced
can,
meal.
it's like we have to live alongside it, right? There's so much of it that's here and that's helping us, all the advances in science and medicine, and there's so many exciting things, but don't forget to take care of the part that really puts you in touch with other people. So connection, it doesn't cure loneliness, like connection, like having the access to the technology doesn't cure the loneliness. It's like the other people that help
Mm.
that.
I think you said a key word there that we don't talk about enough, and that's satisfaction, right?
Yeah.
So the easy thing is a microwave dinner. The
Yeah.
easy thing is something giving you that instant gratification.
Right.
But, the easy thing, if I'm trying to be efficient when I'm masturbating is to pull my vibrator out. But do I
Right.
prefer an orgasm with my partner? I
Hmm.
mean, it depends on, how much time I have, et cetera. But like
Yeah.
that is something I prefer more. I get a lot more satisfaction when it's a shared experience,
Right.
whether that's cooking a meal with somebody,
Hmm.
whether that's, when we grieve together, there's a reason we come together in this very ritualistic way to grieve together, to celebrate together. I mean, these are aspects of what make us human, and they bring about satisfaction. And the easy, quickest, I feel happy and content is not the same as I feel satisfied. And
Hmm.
satisfaction takes work. That old adage, hard work, a job well done and hard work, that's satisfaction. You write an article using AI, you're not going to feel satisfied. You write an
Hmm.
article that came from you feel
Hmm.
deeply, intensely
Hmm.
satisfied.
Yeah.
I remember I used to write music, and I came up in the time where you had to know how to orchestrate different clefs, right? Bass clef in different keys, different instruments in different keys. And then all of a sudden, everybody's doing it with sound libraries and computers, and half the people doing it couldn't read music. And I was like, what is all this?
Hmm.
It was wild how technology completely transformed this industry, where you had to really have a skill and know it inside out to not even being able to read music and still being able to write so much beautiful music. And so, but what I found was it was really satisfying for me, even when I created this stuff with sound libraries. It was satisfying to have these little inside tricks and knowledge of different instruments that other people might not use because they didn't grow up learning about instruments in the orchestra and really studying it. They would
Right.
have to try, 800 different sounds in the sound library. And I would be like, no, this. So I think, deep, deep satisfaction comes from working hard. It comes from putting in effort. It comes from your blood, sweat, tears, and soul. I mean, if you start a company and it fails, okay, you start another company and you keep going and you develop grit and you develop perseverance and persistence. And that is a muscle and a strength that AI cannot give us. And it's so much more rewarding to court someone than that can reject you and walk away. Absolutely, compared to using AI to meet social needs. And it
Yeah.
is in that rejection we learn, right? I
Right.
mean, the broken heart, the failure, all of
Right.
these things make us who we are. All of our struggles, our sacrifice, the hard times, I wouldn't trade any of that because it taught me what I know in ways that AI will never teach me. And
Right.
so I think, but to answer Reed's question, I will say saying hi to your local crosswalk person, saying hi to the people who sit outside your porch, building community, not going around with this attitude that, like, I don't owe anybody anything. Especially here in Brooklyn, you see all these neighborhoods gentrifying everywhere. And I think it's important to be a part of your community and not
Hmm.
be somebody who's moved in to change the community. I've been here like nearly 15 years. So but I make it a point, and I show my child every day when we walk to school. I say hi to people, and it doesn't matter what they look like or what they're doing, or it's. I think just that social engagement, saying hi to strangers. I mean, Valerie Carr's book "See No Stranger" is an incredible book. I highly recommend. If we could just start showing up with our full
Hmm.
humanity toward each other,
Yeah.
and finding ways to relate to each other, and make fun comments or humor. I mean, just
Yeah.
spreading humor and love, and just I do think it's in community that we're gonna maintain our relational skills and our ability to show up in crisis, to show up after a disaster or a big event, and to show up when smaller things happen, or cat runs away, or etc. So
Yeah.
I just showing up.
I think that our next talk should definitely be on that topic, right? Like, I think that we can come up with a ton of practical ways to reclaim that, and come up with ideas, and really talk through why it's so important. Because I think that, this whole topic today, it's like, yes, the AI can help us with certain things, certain kind of, technology can help us with certain things, but like when it comes to the actual relating, like how do we upgrade that intelligence? We
Mm,
have AI, but what about this RI that's going to help us when we actually see each other outside, which
yeah,
is, where we all need to go in order to experience these things, and learn operationally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Shula. It's been
Thank
fun.
you,
Thanks, everybody.
Mal. Thank you. It's
Yeah.
always so fun to hang out and talk, and yeah, more I think in 2 weeks, or
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So we'll send out a little invite, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.